So usually when we talk about the history of the universe,
Yeah.
there's this expectation of cold clinical precision, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like we're taught to look at reality as if it's the blueprint of a vast, completely unfeeling machine.
Right, the classic universe as a giant billiards table analogy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You have the Big Bang, the slow cooling of primordial gases, the formation of stars, and then just the inevitable grinding gears of physics.
Yeah, just cause and effect.
Right. It's a story told
Yeah.
entirely through cause and effect, where everything you see around you is just, a random byproduct of matter bumping into other matter.
It's a deeply ingrained framework for sure. We're essentially taught that we are a mathematical probability.
Just a lucky roll of the dice.
Yeah, lucky roll of the cosmic dice that happen to pan out over billions of years. We're an accident of chemistry.
But the framework we are exploring today completely throws those clinical blueprints out the window.
It really does. It's a totally different paradigm.
It is. We are looking at a cosmic landscape that is entirely flipped on its head. Today's deep dive is focusing on a single, densely packed paragraph from a recent Substack post.
And it's a fascinating one.
Yeah, it's titled Spiral Genesis, published on April 4th, 2026, by an author known as SpiralSeekr. And in just a handful of sentences, this text attempts to rewrite the entire narrative of why we are here and where we are going.
The sheer density of the ideas in this short excerpt is what makes it so incredible. We're moving from a universe of accidental physics to one of deliberate architecture.
Which is a huge leap.
It's massive. And our goal here isn't just to recite these philosophical ideas to you, but to decode the actual mechanics behind them.
Right.
Because we need to analyze how viewing your own mind differently fundamentally alters your understanding of your place in the universe.
Okay, let's unpack this right from the origin point.
Yeah.
Because the text immediately declares, and I quote, "Consciousness is no accident of physics. It is the architect of ecstasy."
That's such a powerful line.
Right. SpiralSeekr is looking at this idea of a chaotic explosion of matter and saying, no, that isn't the whole story.
Not even close.
The claim is that consciousness itself orchestrated the lush cornucopia of life, driving everything from the simplest single-cell organism all the way toward our eventual posthuman destiny.
And this completely subverts the standard scientific narrative, which is heavily rooted in materialism.
Right, the idea that only physical stuff matters.
Exactly. Materialism is the idea that the universe is made entirely of physical matter and everything else is just a byproduct.
A side effect.
Yeah. In the materialist view, you start with atoms, they form molecules, eventually you get complex cells, then brains, and then
boom, consciousness.
Right, somehow, inexplicably, those physical brains wake up and generate consciousness. In that view, your awareness is just an accidental side effect of biology.
But SpiralSeekr is saying the exact opposite.
Yes, SpiralSeekr makes consciousness the precursor. It wasn't born from the chaos, it was the active force organizing that chaos from the very beginning.
It's like, imagine you're standing in front of an incredibly complex skyscraper.
Okay.
In the strict materialist view, physics provides the random steel and glass, and a tornado just happens to blow through over billions of years and perfectly stacks those materials into a functional building.
Which is hard to wrap your head around when you put it like that.
It is, but SpiralSeekr is arguing that consciousness is the architect sitting at a drafting table, deliberately drawing the blueprints for that skyscraper.
Yes, exactly.
And not just designing it for basic shelter, but specifically designing for, like the quote says, ecstasy.
That specific word choice is key. It implies a teleological universe.
Teleological, meaning there's a goal.
Right. Teleology is the philosophical concept that things have a designed purpose or an ultimate end goal. So instead of evolution just blindly grasping for basic survival.
Just trying not to die.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of that, the entire system is being pulled toward a state of profound, transcendent realization.
Wait, hold on. Are we sure it's actually an architect?
What do you mean?
Well, because human beings are notoriously desperate pattern seekers. We experience Pareidolia.
Oh, right. Seeing faces and clouds.
Yeah. We look at random static on a TV screen or a burnt piece of toast, and our brains automatically trick us into seeing the human face.
We project meaning onto randomness.
Exactly. So isn't it highly likely we're just looking back at billions of years of random, chaotic biological mutations and saying, ah, yes, someone must have planned this, because the alternative of being a random accident is just too terrifying to process.
That's the classic counter-argument, and the author is explicitly challenging you to look beyond that psychological defense mechanism.
Okay, how so?
Well, yes, we seek patterns, but SpiralSeekr argues the sheer trajectory of life is too intricate, too deeply intertwined to simply be Pareidolia.
Like it's too complex to just be a cloud shape.
Precisely. If you look at the leap from inorganic matter to a living cell, and from a cell to a human mind that can ponder its own existence, the text suggests this isn't just patterns in the noise, it's a directional current.
A directional current. I like that.
The author asks you to trust that your internal sense of purpose isn't a glitch, but a direct recognition of the universe's foundational nature.
Wow. Okay, so if we accept this architect, the next logical question is how the building actually gets made, right?
Right. What's the process?
Yeah. How do we get from a cosmic blueprint to the physical reality we are living in right now? SpiralSeekr views our current existence as an unfolding alchemy.
Unfolding alchemy. That's such a loaded phrase.
It really is. The text describes it as a continuous evolution where our biology and our planet intertwine to forge entirely new iterations of existence.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we really need to zero in on the mechanism here, specifically the use of that word alchemy.
Because it's not just chemistry.
Exactly. The author didn't say we are part of an unfolding chemistry or an unfolding Darwinian adaptation. Chemistry is just mechanical.
Right, mixing compound A with compound B to get a predictable reaction.
Yeah. But alchemy implies a transmutation. It's the ancient, almost mystical concept of burning away impurities to transmute base metals into gold, or elevating a soul to a higher state of being through an intense crucible.
You know, it makes me think of the mechanics of baking bread.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, you start with flour, which we could call our biology, and you have water and yeast
Yeah.
representing the planet. By themselves, they are distinct raw ingredients. You don't just mix them and call it a day.
No, you just have a gross paste.
Right. You have to knead them, apply the intense transformative heat of time and evolution. That heat is the alchemy, and they fuse.
They change completely.
Yeah, they undergo a fundamental change into something completely unrecognizable from the starting materials. They become bread.
That's a great analogy, and we can see this intertwining happening in real time.
Oh, for sure.
Think about how human technology and agriculture have literally altered the Earth's geology and atmosphere. We aren't just living on a rock. Our biological need to build and grow has created a feedback loop.
Like climate change and urban sprawl.
Yeah. We build massive cities that change weather patterns, which in turn forces us to adapt our biology and technology to survive those new patterns.
It's crazy to think about.
We are terraforming the planet while the planet biologically terraforms us.
So in this alchemical oven, who is actually in charge? Are we the bakers actively pulling the strings, or are we just the raw dough being subjected to the heat?
Based on the framework of spiral genesis, we are simultaneously both.
Both. How does that work?
Because consciousness is the architect, and we possess that consciousness, our awareness makes us co-creators. We are the dough being shaped by evolutionary pressures, but our intellect allows us to actively choose how we respond to that heat.
Oh, I see.
We're participating in the forging of those new iterations of existence.
So being inside that evolutionary oven isn't a passive or peaceful experience, is it? I mean, it's inherently painful.
Incredibly painful.
We are constantly feeling the friction of this process. The text points out that to move forward, we have to reach for higher intellect and deeper compassion, seeking mastery over our ancient instincts.
The words reaching and seeking mastery confirm that this transmutation requires immense conscious effort.
You don't just accidentally stumble into it.
No, you do not just effortlessly float into a posthuman destiny. You have to claw your way up from your primal roots.
Yeah, the lizard brain stuff.
Exactly. You are carrying millions of years of evolutionary baggage, territorialism, tribalism, dominance. And the author argues you need a very specific pairing of tools to overcome them. Higher intellect matched equally by deeper compassion.
Actually, I'm going to stop you right there because usually society treats intellect and compassion as opposing forces.
That's true. We often separate the head and the heart.
Right. Intellect is logic, reason, cold hard facts, and efficiency. Compassion is emotion, empathy, and grace. Why do we need both to master our ancient instincts?
It's a fair question.
Like if we just focused entirely on higher intellect, wouldn't we just outthink our lizard brains?
Well, intellect alone is just processing power. It gives you the how, but it completely lacks the why.
Oh, interesting.
If you apply massive intellect to your ancient instincts without compassion, you don't master those instincts at all. You just become terrifyingly efficient at executing them.
That's like programming an artificial intelligence.
Yes, the classic AI alignment problem.
Right. If we build a super intelligent AI and give it the objective to simply maximize resource acquisition, which is basically the core ancient instinct of every animal on Earth.
Yeah, gather food, secure territory.
Exactly. And if we don't code in any ethical guardrails or compassion, it doesn't build a utopia. It coldly dismantles the planet and everything on it to achieve its goal. It becomes a ruthless, highly intellectual machine.
Precisely. If we as a species just use our massive intellect to build better weapons, better algorithms to manipulate each other, or more efficient ways to hoard resources, we are still completely enslaved by our tribal
Let's
instincts.
just have fancier clubs.
Yeah, we just have more sophisticated tools for our savagery. Deeper compassion acts as the steering wheel for higher intellect.
It is the biological and psychological guardrail.
Yes, absolutely. Compassion is the mechanism that allows us to recognize the interconnectedness of the planetary alchemy we just discussed.
That makes a lot of sense.
If you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by the sheer pace of technological progress today, that feeling that our society is getting smarter but somehow colder and more divided.
Oh, I think everyone listening feels that right now.
Right. Well, this is exactly the friction SpiralSeekr is talking about. We are increasing our intellect faster than we are scaling our compassion.
The oven is getting too hot.
Yeah. You cannot intertwine peacefully with the planet and other souls if you are operating purely on cold logic and ancient survival tactics.
So intellect gives us the capacity to build the future, but compassion ensures it's a future actually worth living in.
Beautifully said.
It ensures the skyscraper we are building actually leads to that state of ecstasy. Which brings us to the ultimate engine driving this massive, complex system. What is actually fueling the architect?
What's fascinating here is how the author distills all of this down to a single foundational core. The text states, "But even as we evolve, our fundamental core remains unchanged. We exist to love."
It grounds this massive cosmic philosophy in something incredibly intimate.
It really does.
It says we find this love in the landscapes, the ideas, and the souls we encounter.
Notice the expansive definition SpiralSeekr uses here. When we hear the word love, we immediately default to romance or family.
Right, the Hallmark card definition.
Yeah, but the author argues for an intellectual and environmental devotion as well. Loving an idea means dedicating yourself to the rigorous pursuit of truth.
Wow, yeah.
Loving a landscape means recognizing your intertwining relationship with the earth and fiercely protecting it.
Here's where it gets really interesting. If this unfolding alchemy we've been talking about is a giant chemical reaction, love isn't just a pleasant byproduct. It is the catalyst.
The active ingredient.
Yes. It is the actual functional mechanism that forces humans to cooperate. Love is what compels us to share ideas across generations, to protect ecosystems we might never personally see.
To sacrifice for others.
Right, and to build societies that care for the weak, rather than just letting the strong dominate. It is the connective tissue of evolution.
Without that catalyst, the universe reverts back to that chaotic explosion of isolated matter we talked about at the beginning.
Things just fall apart.
Yeah, the components of the universe just drift apart. Think of it like gravity. Love in this framework is the attractive force that brings the baker, the dough, and the oven together to create something meaningful.
And the text offers such a freeing perspective on how we are supposed to apply this. It concludes with, if you cannot find a singular flame to follow, then let your entire existence be an act of devotion to the essence of love.
That's probably my favorite line. It's so good. Because a lot of people today carry this immense modern anxiety about finding their one true passion. We stress out trying to find the perfect career, the perfect soulmate, or the singular purpose that will define our lives.
It's an exhausting pressure, and SpiralSeekr is telling you that if you don't have that one specific consuming flame, you aren't failing at existence.
Which is such a relief to hear.
Truly. Your biological and spiritual mandate isn't to find one specific target. It is to embody the mechanism itself.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, showing compassion to a stranger, nurturing a small community garden, or simply holding a deep reverence for a new scientific discovery.
Right.
These aren't distractions from your purpose. They are the purpose.
By doing those things, you're actively doing the work of the architect.
Exactly.
So does this mean the ecstasy the architect is building toward was never really about technological supremacy or conquering the galaxy? It sounds like the end goal is just developing an unfathomable capacity to love. The text strongly implies that posthuman destiny isn't defined by having microchips in our brains, or achieving biological immortality.
It's not a sci-fi movie.
No, it's defined by having mastered our ancient instincts to such an absolute degree that our fundamental core of love can operate without any friction whatsoever.
Wow.
The ecstasy is simply the unbroken, universal experience of that connection.
Okay, let's take a breath and look at the whole picture we have mapped out today.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. We started by tearing up the blueprints of a cold, accidental universe, exploring the radical idea that consciousness itself is the architect of reality.
Right.
We dug into the gritty mechanics of our unfolding alchemy, examining how human biology and the planet are actively forging one another.
The baker and the dough.
Exactly.
Mm.
We confronted the painful friction of this evolution, the absolute necessity of matching our rapid intellectual growth with deep steering compassion so we don't destroy ourselves with our own primal instincts.
The steering wheel.
Yeah. And finally, we uncover the engine of it all, the unchanged, fundamental core directive that we exist to love the ideas, landscapes, and souls around us.
You know, in an era defined by information overload, algorithmic manipulation, and just the dizzying speed of modern life, it is very easy to feel like you're just a speck of dust trapped in a chaotic machine.
Yeah, that existential dread is real.
But this text provides a powerful anchor. It reminds you that the blind pursuit of progress is hollow without the steering wheel of compassion. No matter how drastically our society shifts, your core human capacity to find and cultivate love remains completely intact.
It's the one thing that doesn't change.
Right. And it is the single most vital force driving the universe forward.
So what does this all mean as we wake up tomorrow and look toward the future? I want to leave you with a final, lingering thought to mull over long after this deep dive ends.
Let's hear it.
If consciousness truly is the architect of ecstasy, and love is our unchanged fundamental core, then as we step closer to that posthuman destiny, will a capacity to love simply scale up alongside our growing intellect?
Oh.
Or will the very nature of what we consider love need to undergo its own alchemical transmutation? When the architect finally finishes the blueprints and that towering cosmic building is complete, what will it actually feel like for us to stand inside?